that I will bring out is the fact that at the beginning of this meeting, we're going to conduct a portion of the fire board meeting is conducted every fire board meeting. And on tonight's agenda, primarily, it's going to be approving the minutes of our last meeting. That's done concurrently, and then we'll get a discussion. I will also point out, I'm going to lay out some ground rules for this evening about what's going to occur and what's not going to occur, so we can run this meeting as smoothly as possible. I have 6:30. We'll go ahead and conduct the Hamilton County, or should I say the fire territories meeting at this point. I have minutes from the last meeting. If you had an opportunity to read it. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as written? Okay. I have a second, and the minutes are approved as written. That will require a signature at this point. While we're doing that, I'm going to lay out some ground rules so everybody is aware of where the playing ground is at, so to speak. We want to conduct this meeting. First of all, this is an information processing period for both entities, not only Atlanta but Arcadia, as well as other entities are involved. There will be no decisions made at this meeting. Information will be put out. We're going to ask that everybody respect each other's rights within the meeting.
There's a lot of people out here.
As well as outside the meeting. I would ask you if you don't mind turning off your cell phones. If you have your cell phone on or you have it on vibrate, if you have an emergency, you need to talk on the cell phone, I would ask you please step outside the meeting place and go ahead and conduct the business at that point so we don't interfere. Every question, every comment will be directed to me. I'm the chairman for this meeting, and I will pass it on to the respective party, whether it be the trustee, Chris Miller, or John Pfeiffer, the other entity from Atlanta or from Arcadia. I'm not only carry two hats.
There's a whole bunch of people out here that are waiting still to get in. If possibly we could wait a few minutes, I'm sorry.
Well, we're rolling right now. They're welcome to come in anytime.
Do you want them to come in without signing in? Would that be better?
I'm sorry?
Do you want them to go ahead and come in so that, I think the sign is what holding them.
Yeah.
Let them go ahead and have them come in and sign in after. That'll be fine.
Yeah.
The people who are concerned about this absolutely have the right to be in here and have the time to get in.
I agree. Everybody should be allowed, whoever showed up should be allowed in the
Let
room.
it be, then we'll go ahead and do a recess on this meeting, and everybody in then.
You can sign it out.
Majority rules.
Thank you.
To get started at this point, I'll have to go ahead and start one more time, but that's okay. I can learn from repetition. First of all, I want to welcome everyone here to the meeting. This is an important issue that we're going to discuss this evening. Again, it's an information process. No decisions will be made this evening. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions at any time. You'll raise your hand for a question. You will direct the question to me as the chairperson or the president of the fire territory, and I will pass it on to the respective person to answer the questions. There are issues with the way this it's going to be conducted. I don't want this to be a yelling contest or cursing at any point. I want to make sure that this meeting is conducted, that persons ought to be treated the right way. I would ask you to turn off your cell phones like I asked earlier unless you have an emergency phone call, and then that can be discussed outside in the hallway. One person will be allowed to talk at one time. Please do not repeat the question. That will be answered once, and you'll have 2 minutes for your question. Do not make threats or rude comments to members or others in the meeting. Address all concerns and questions to me. Be kind to people who do attend, because we're all here for a purpose. We're all here for the benefit of our own towns that we live in northern town. I will initially start off. I'll introduce the issue, and then we'll go from there. Inappropriate conduct and behavior will not be tolerated. I do have police here, and I do have a marshal. This is not a threat. This is just a way of conducting business, because all of us need to learn something from this, even myself and anybody else. And you can't conduct a meeting when everybody's yelling at the same time and asking questions at the same time. So it will be conducted properly. Again, I mentioned no decisions are made at this point, just an information gathering process. Hopefully we'll learn from this process that every citizen, whether you're in Atlanta or Arcadia, have the opportunity to attend Arcadia Town Council meetings, Atlanta, or the other meeting that pertains to the community, because that's where your voice is heard. And also township meetings, of course. I'm sure, and the reason why we're here is because of a township decision. This is not a decision that the fire territory made. Make that very clear. I'll make the introduction if you don't mind in a minute. Thank you. So, from then on, maybe, hopefully, we all attend and, and try to make things better in the town and also in our community. Before we get started, you have a question, but I would prefer, can that question be delayed, or do you have a?
No, it pertains to what you just said. Why was there not a meeting held before this decision was made?
Before what was made?
The vote was already passed for the territory to be disbanded, correct?
That's something you can't ask the territory. The territory did not make that decision. Your question is to the Jackson Township Board when they had their meeting. And that is publicized. They do publicize the meetings, and there's a sign right in front of the fire department that indicates when the meetings are conducted. So your questions are more directed to the township, because the vote was 3-0. It wasn't 3-0 from the fire territory, it was 3-0 from the Jackson Township Board itself. But that is a good question. Yes, sir.
Can you back up just a couple steps and tell me what the situation is as of right now for fire coverage for Arcadia?
This is what I'm going to do. We'll get right to that, and
Okay.
keep me in line if you don't mind, okay? Thank you very much. Anyway, the issue is, and most of the issue is conducted with the respective elected officials from Arcadia that'll make a decision and options between now and July 1st, and that decision will be made. Arcadia did have an executive council meeting yesterday, and we discussed this issue. So we do have some options and other options that become available down the road. And I can assure you that I'll make just an overall comment. If there's a fire, you'll have a fire truck at any time, or if you have an emergency, if somebody has a heart attack, there will be an ambulance there. The other issues I'll talk about is strictly financial situations. What I would like to do at this point, before we get into the other issues, is I want to read a letter. If it may or may not have, you had the opportunity to read and have access to. Yes, ma'am.
Can you back up just a little bit and introduce the people that are on the board?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I apologize for that, but we have Mr. Pfeiffer. Mr. Pfeiffer is not only on the fire board, but also a council member from the town of Atlanta. Chris Miller is Jackson Township Trustee. My name is Maurice St. Louis. I carry two hats. I'm president for the Arcadia Town Council, as well as president for the fire territory.
Thank you.
Okay. This letter was dated February 10th, 2016. The letter was sent out by Jeff Roberts, president of the Jackson Township Board, as a result of a meeting they had conducted. A decision was made by the Jackson Township Board. Jackson Township, the town of Atlanta, and the town of Arcadia entered into an interlocal cooperation agreement in 2011. That was July 1st, by the way, to form the Jackson Fire Territory. The fire territory is a legal funding mechanism for fire and emergency services. Over the past 4 years, the Jackson Fire Territory increased the level and quality of fire and emergency services to all its participating units. However, after much consideration and financial analysis, the Jackson Township Board decided to withdraw from the Jackson Fire Territory. This is the most financially responsible decision and is the best interest of all Jackson Township residents. Because of the township's withdrawal, the Jackson Fire Territory will dissolve effective July 1st, 2016. But fire and emergency service will not change for residents in the unincorporated portion of Jackson Township. However, the town of Atlanta and the town of Arcadia will need to make a decision regarding its fire and emergency services provider moving forward. While this is a change in structure, the Jksn Township Fire Department will, as they have in the past, be more than happy to partner and contract with the towns of Atlanta and Arcadia to provide continued high-quality fire and emergency services, signed Jeff Roberts, president. They had a vote, and the vote was passed 3-0 to dissolve effective July 1st. This is where it all started. And this territory was formed, and I've been with this whole process since 2011. This territory was started at that point, and we've been in existence going on the 5th year. We're the first ones actually in the state of Indiana that received EMS services, got a full contract with the state for EMS. This is what everybody wanted. This is what we got. However, during that period of time, decisions were made, contracts were conducted, and funds became available through the DLGF and controlled through the DLGF. So what this amounts to, and I will start in participant, the town of Atlanta and with their council members, their elected officials. Mr. Farley right here is the president for the Atlanta Town Council. They will decide between now and July 1st, at the end of the year, what they wish to do, whether they will wish to continue receiving services from the fire department in the territory or the township, or decide other options, or contract among other entities, or other options that they may have. One thing good about Atlanta, there's always a lot of good things about Atlanta, but one of the things, they do have their own fire department. They have fire trucks and do have some equipment. The problem with the whole aspect, and I'll let them answer those questions, is the fact that financially it takes a lot of money, a lot of tax money to run the fire department. Town of Arcadia does not have a fire department, so we have to rely on the other options, either contract with whomever we need a contract with in order to have fire services and EMS service for the citizens of Arcadia. And that's pursuant to what we have to do here in town. It is my goal on the town council to make sure that happens. And a decision will be made by the town council between now and July 1st. So, at this point, I give you a relatively kind of a small scenario why we're here at this point. We have a lot of concerned citizens, and rightly so. What do I do? You know, we've always been considered the stepchild of Hamilton County. And, you know, we don't get a lot of the residual effects of a lot of the benefits that the rest of the county gets. But what we do get, we like to keep. And we're just as important as everybody else in the county. And this is why this is all about, is to fight for our rights, to make sure that we have the same services as everybody else has. So, at this point, I'll entertain some questions. And if I miss you, I know there was a hand over here in the back earlier, so if you don't mind, I'll start back there. Go ahead.
I've got two really quick questions.
Sure.
My first one is, what is our emergency response time? How is that going to be affected by the situation?
You know, emergency response time is something I've always preferred to discuss. However, with the fire department here in Arcadia, for the citizens of Arcadia, it's been pretty quick.
Right, it has been pretty quick, but with these changes, how?
Yeah, well, you know, if we get services from Sheridan, yes, it's gonna change.
Right.
You know, but we're hoping to keep it local enough so we have the same kind of response time that we've had in the past. And that's our ultimate goal, to make sure that if there's a fire, somebody's there as quick as possible to put on that fire. If it needs a heart attack, if we need a paramedic, make sure we have EMS service when it's required and when it's needed. Yes, ma'am.
My other quick question is, what do we plan on doing with the assets that we have built with paying our taxes, as far as the ambulance services, the building, the fire trucks? How do we plan on handling that?
I will, if anybody would like to answer that, I can answer it, but we'll ask Chris Miller to go ahead and answer that.
The current Station 55, which is located at 506 West Main, is actually owned by the unincorporated township. The ambulance was purchased or is being purchased by the taxpayers of the unincorporated township. The ambulance was $130,000 and the engine was $450,000, of which the unincorporated township paid for. So those assets belong to the unincorporated township. And the only other thing that I would like to add is that we are more than willing to partner. This is really a financial decision.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Back there, please.
I have a question. If finance is the big issue here,
Yes.
then have you looked into some of the federal grants and state grants that you could possibly get?
Those are options. I mean, we're looking at every possible options to make this work. Arcadia alone cannot finance a part of the fire department. We tried. Remember, we had a volunteer service that didn't work too well.
Well, if you're with Atlanta, wouldn't that make a difference? I mean, as far as grants, you could get.
The problem is that in order to form a territory, you have to be contingent to that territory. For example, we have to border Atlanta in order to be contiguous. In order for us to incorporate it into a territory. We're not sure if we're going, I'm not sure, I only can speak for Arcadia, I'm not sure if we're going in the direction of contiguous territory. Maybe another territory. It's whatever is more feasible, quicker, and more response time that's gonna gear that decision.
So if you had a fire department on 19, for example, then you would be bordering that territory?
I don't understand your question.
The two entities have to touch.
Okay.
They have
In
to
order
border,
to be a territory, they have to touch.
and that's state law right there as far as territory. We do.
Arcadia and Atlanta don't.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Robin Cook, I'm the representative for the town of Atlanta. And I'm just have some questions about this. I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around the fact that this is for financial reasons. If, we visited this last year with the township board and the fire territory, and at that time it was agreed that, the budget was fine, everything was fine, we were wiping the slate clean, and we were all gonna get along, and everything was par for the course, and should a financial crisis occur, we would revisit the COA monies and all of that. Nothing has been reported to us that, things are suddenly not okay. If you look at, the fire territory and the EMS funds, every year since the fire territory has been implemented, it has carried over money. So that is not indicative of a budget crisis. And if it is a financial reason, then why would you split the territory? And if the tax rate does stay the same, the tax rate's gonna go three ways, the assets are gonna go three ways, the debt is gonna go three ways, and then you're gonna have three entities paying separately for what one entity is doing right now just fine. So I'm really not swallowing that there's a financial crisis.
I understand. We'll try to, the only way, you want that question answered as simple as possible. There are multiple questions you had there. But simply, I'll ask Chris to answer part of that question, and we'll go ahead, we can continue on to that.
Our budget for this year, I would agree, is intact, and we're fine. What we're looking at down the road, when we talk about grants, we did receive grants as a territory. One of those grants was a significant grant to pay for a firefighter, for 3 firefighters for 2 years, that we actually did a firefighter medic, which is how we got the medic service and the ALS certification. Those grants are ending, and it's now time to start handling that on our own. So we have a financial advisor, and we looked down the road, as we did last year, and said that these COA dollars that are gonna need to go into the fire territory in order to keep that going. When we look down the road and see that that isn't happening, then that's when we have a problem. So we felt like if we dissolved the territory, if the township withdrew, then that withdrawal in itself would bring those COA dollars into the fire budget, which would enable us to maintain status quo.
Right, but when we looked into that last year, we looked at, the 5 years out, and you were showing expenditures as like doubling, tripling, quadrupling, and revenues as flatlining, and that's not accurate. So I think it would help taxpayers if we could see the accurate numbers as to how you're deriving that it's gonna be in financial trouble.
Right.
And I would say that that's certainly something that I hope that the boards, the township board and the council sit down and we look at together. But it was a decision of.
Why can't we look
Why
at
can't
it?
we look at it?
I'm not saying that you can't. I'm not at all saying that, because I'm gonna be totally transparent. I'm not prepared to do that this evening, because this is not, I wasn't prepared. I'd like to have the financial advisor be on attendance, just like he was before. And I know that you have a different opinion, but it was the opinion of the township board that this was the right decision.
Right, I just feel like that this was kind of, everyone was blindsided by it, and by that same token, if I may, Maurice, I could go to our town's financial consultant right now and I can tell him, I'm expecting that we're gonna get this much revenue and, that we're gonna have to spend this much, and he can say, Robin, you're gonna have a financial crisis. I can go to my council and tell them that. If they don't put it under a microscope, then in their mind, there's a crisis. And I think that this needs to be under a microscope, and I think that we need to see those numbers.
Agreed.
I agree.
Yep.
And not,
So I'm actually a citizen in the unincorporated Jksn Township. I didn't really know what this meeting was about, but that Jksn Township Fire Department is still staying in existence. And just as a side note, in 2011, this explains a lot to me that I didn't understand. The folks in the unincorporated area, we got a $600 tax bill added to us every year to pay for the fire department, which we didn't know. I went down to the county to complain about it because I said I thought it was ridiculous to increase taxes $583, and they said that was because of the fire. That isn't the county. That's it. So I had no idea. But since 2012, because you pay 1 year behind, we've been paying $600 a year on average for fire service out of our individual household taxes. So that explains a lot to me now.
The fire rate for, the fire rate for everyone in the territory is .196. So it's on assessed value, and everyone shares that tax rate. So,
Everyone in the fire district?
in the fire territory.
Okay.
Yeah, a district is a county ran, and a territory is ran by a fire board. But the tax rate is .196, and everybody pays that same rate.
Because that's not what the county told us. The county told us that only the township was paying that rate, and the Cicero and the land, that they were paying a different rate.
Cicero has its own fire department, and in a town, the way I kind of see it, I put pictures in the town, they kind of have, in my mind, a bag of money, and it doesn't necessarily have a rate, but in a township, you have a rate. So the so Cicero pays for the Cicero Fire Department. The Jksn Township Fire Department is paid out by the unincorporated citizens. And then Atlanta and Arcadia, prior to the territory, contracted with the township Atlanta for fire and EMS, and Arcadia for fire and EMS, and for both. So the rate as it stands right now is .196, and that rate will continue. So your taxes are not going to go up, and the town's levy, the max levy of the town will increase by .196, and then that will enable the towns to have the finances to do a contract, or whatever they decide. Not my decision.
Yes, ma'am.
When you say that everyone is paying for the fire territory, does that include Atlanta and Arcadia?
Yes. And
So they are already paying for it?
And
it's going to go up every time.
Until July the 1st, that's the way it stands. Then as of July the 1st, then there needs to be a decision made. Taxes are paid 6 months behind, or you pay them what was before. So we get a draw in the end of June, July, and then we get another draw in December. So the draw in June is going to be paying for service from January to June. That draw will be paid by everybody in Jksn, Atlanta, and Arcadia. Then in December, that draw is gonna be from July to December. Generally, or oftentimes when a territory dissolves, what people decide is, we've got a budget already set, we can just let this go for this year and then figure out what to do as of January 1. Certainly, again, everyone's gotta make that option, but that is certainly something that we can do. Then that would take the July 2nd or July 1st kind of off the table in respect of where are we gonna get services. Well, we'll just continue it the way it is. Then as January 1, then we figure out, do we want a contract? What do we want to do? How do we want to do this to make this work? Again, this was a financial decision, and the township, we have the equipment, we have the paramedics, we have 2 ambulances. I mean, we're more than willing to work with the 2 towns to make it work with the finances that they have.
But I don't think that answered my question, and I'm sure that the people that moan feel the same way. I wanted to know if Arcadia and Atlanta, and I don't live in either of those, if Arcadia and Atlanta are already paying that rate, and they'll
Yes.
continue to pay that rate.
Yes, it won't change. The difference is where the money's gonna go. So right now, it's gonna go, it goes into the fire territory fund, which is a part of the township budget. After the township is dissolved, or not the township, after the territory is dissolved, one of the TV stations wanted to know why Jackson was leaving Hamilton County. That was one of our questions today, and I was gonna take all of you with us, we should vote for it. But anyway, so after that happens, the rate will remain the same. Those monies will just flow into the town's budget.
Go ahead.
I have a question. If this is dissolving and there's a financial situation now with the township and your revenue decreases and we know the grant has ended, how are you gonna fund the paramedic service?
We have the finances there to do that. It's just that down the road, we need the co-op money to consider. So we're good for right now. We can use the EMS funds.
I know, but when the EMS fund is depleted, how are you gonna fund the paramedics?
Then, when the EMS fund is, by the time this dissolution, it takes a couple of years for the co-op money to come around. Then what we anticipate is that co-op will fill in the gap and we'll be able to use those funds.
Just before I entertain a motion, I just want to make it perfectly clear that the town of Arcadia, as well as Atlanta, were surprised that we received a letter. We were given advance notice, just like you were told, advance notice. It was in our decision. I'll make it perfectly clear, it's not Arcadia, nor was it Atlanta's decision.
What meeting do we need to be sitting at?
Yes.
I have a question. What's supposed to be the difference between unincorporated and incorporated as far as the individual taxpayer goes?
Exactly.
What are you calling unincorporated? What are you calling incorporated?
Incorporated is within the town of Arcadia, within the residents of Arcadia. Unincorporated, it's still within the township, but it's outside the parameters of the corporation. So that's unincorporated, but they still receive services. Now, for tax basis, maybe, we have Lee Graham here, I think, and to probably make a quick comment that'll probably resolve that. Lee, you have that?
Okay.
Tax purposes,
How do you get boundary line for being incorporated or unincorporated? If you belong to the town of land.
Right, right. If you live in the town limits of Arcadia, you're in the taxing district of Arcadia. So your tax dollars are going to go to the town of Arcadia, the school, and all the units involved. Same way with Atlanta. But like I live in Jksn Township, I live in the unincorporated area that's not within city limits.
And so what does that mean?
So my tax dollars are going to the township trustee, they don't go to a city or
Well,
town.
let's, for instance, if your mailing address should be Atlanta, but you live out in the country, not downtown, are you incorporated or unincorporated?
Probably unincorporated. Your mailing address doesn't have anything to do with it, the post office decides that.
Okay. It would minimize the time if we don't have to.
That answers.
They just add more time, but, that's a very good question, I appreciate it. Just a minute, Andy. Yes, sir.
I understand why Jksn Township came to you. It's a financial decision. they're not getting enough money from us, so they're cutting us off. I understand that. Have they come to the town of Arcadia with a proposal that says we would still like to take care of the town of Arcadia for this amount of money? Or have they just said, tough luck, guys, it's up to you, and then we're gonna negotiate it later?
I'll answer that question.
Okay.
That's what Arcadia is doing. I'm not speaking for any other entities. That was the purpose of the executive session we had the other day with the other council. This is very early in the stage, so we can't expect things to happen overnight.
Nor do I.
Short term, there will be an option where, either way you look at it, you're going to have fire protection, and you're going to have residents, you're going to have EMS service. The difference is whether or not we contract with the township, or we contract with Atlanta, or we contract with Tipton, which they don't have the resources, but there's options out there that we're looking at everything possible.
Nothing's been proposed yet.
I'm sorry?
Nothing's been proposed
No,
yet.
there's been some discussion, but not any proposals. That's up to the councilors, that's up to the town of Arcadia,
Sure.
like the
Okay.
I'm sorry, you had something you wanted to add?
If I may, it wasn't, if you look at our press release, which I wish I brought more copies, our whole thing is that you're not giving us enough money. I mean, your tax rate is the same rate as the rate of the township. It's 0.196. It's all about the COID issue. And COID issue is county option income tax, extremely hard to understand. But I feel like the DLGF is giving COID dollars that should be funneled into the fire territory to the towns. So we're trying to do something to funnel those into fire protection, which then we would come back and it's not, and we're not saying we don't want to deal with you at all.
But we don't really have any control over COID.
No, you do not. It is the DLGF that has control, right?
So we're still stuck in the same places. We need to give you more money to get the protection. In some way, whether it be COID, whether it be whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm concerned with the 3 schools that are located in town and not, if,
Two of them are.
2 of them are.
They're in township.
All the school incorporated, all the school buildings are in the unincorporated
I've
area.
had,
My backyard growing up.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
It goes right in front of the building, it's incorporated.
I've had discussions. I can't possibly talk, but if I didn't hear, somebody's talking at the same time. I'm gonna answer the question. I've been in dialogue with Peggy Jksn, and made it clear to her that that's unincorporated, that falls in the same category, and they are not being affected by this split with the township in Arcadia land. It has nothing to do with it. The school will maintain and get the same fire protection they've always had in the state emergency services. It has to do with Arcadia and Atlanta. Andy, I think you were.
No, it's okay, I'll wait.
You sure?
Yeah, thank you.
Basically, alright, are we looking at, when are we looking at losing our fire station?
We're not losing the fire department. The fire department's staying.
It's gonna stay. It's just, we just.
The difference is the fire.
Alright, and it's because we can't afford to pay the taxes to pay for them, right? When is Arcadia gonna start getting some business in here? Yeah, so we can get some revenue. We need some revenue.
Go ahead, sir.
I have a couple of questions. Can you please help me understand something? First one, which everybody, and I know Maurice, you tried to clear that up about response time, but if it's not here, it's not here. I can drive down 19, and I live in Atlanta, and it takes me 10 minutes to get to the elementary school, the Seventh-day Adventist Elementary School, which, you know, that's, as far as I know, the first fire department, since we can't have our own fire departments. It's 10 minutes. My house is gone. It's going to be nothing but burnt ash. So you tell me that we're going to have fire, we're not going to lose anything, or fire protection. I can't understand this, because we're not going to have the same protection if you're shutting things down? That's what I'm trying to understand. Secondly, I don't understand the numbers. I think a lot of people are that way. If this is a financial crisis, like Andy said, and you're taking money out of your budget, you're going to be hurting more. I mean, it's just the same as if you had a household budget. You're taking money out of your budget, you're going to be hurting. I don't understand what's the difference? I mean, what are we missing here on the money?
So your question...
You're wanting more money, like the gentleman said.
So really, your question is, how can they sustain the fire department without the territory if they have a financial problem? Is that your question?
It's just, it doesn't make sense to us because down in Arcadia, we'll find our own route if we can, and then you're going to be hurting more by kicking us out. I don't understand how.
They're gonna get more codes.
Yeah, how much more money is the code? Is what you're not telling us.
They're holding us hostage is what they're doing.
But in a sense, you are because we're paying more one way or the other, right?
Before this all happened, Arcadia had a contract with Jackson Township for firing the EMS, and they paid $17,000. The territory enabled all of us to raise our rate, to raise the finances, to put the territory together. So, and we have enough funding right now. It's the forecasting, when we forecast down the road. So it's being proactive instead of reactive.
Okay, so does your forecast show, now that you're going to take two of these towns out of the equation,
We really don't want to take you out of the equation. We really want to say, let's do it a different way.
Well, yeah, we're asking you. I'm just saying, do you have two different forecasts there? Now that we're, in July, we're going to be out, you're going to be missing some money. What's your forecast show then when you don't get to tow it? How bad is it going to be for you?
When the two towns aren't there, first of all, I don't want the two towns not.
We understand that, but what about the forecast?
But the forecast is all about the code. So when we get out of it, the decision is made, the territories, the townships is gone. So it'll take a couple of years for that poet money to come around, and then that will sustain fire protection.
So for a couple of years, we got to do.
We have enough money, we have enough funding there to do it for the next year.
So you're guaranteed this co-ed in a couple of years?
Nobody's guaranteed anything, because they will obviously.
So then why, so you're gambling, I mean, in a sense. It's not gambling, you're not guaranteed something, but you're taking it away. I don't understand that part.
I understand it, it is way close, it is light
There's going to be other things, and also, there's going to be other meetings that I want to say that I don't think that Atlanta and Arcadia, but also one thing in the township. I encourage you to attend the township meetings and ask the township board those specific questions. Territory people, us in the towns can't answer that question, because it's up to us to stay the way it is.
What time are the township meetings?
Yeah.
They are on, if you go to JksnTownshipTrustee.com, we have a calendar in there, and we put meetings on it. We also forecast them, we also put them on the sign out front. They're generally at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'd be more than happy
So we can all take a day off work or what?
Work to pay that co-ed tax. Be more than happy to change those meetings to the evening. We have
Yes.
evenings.
Ma'am, you had a police squad.
Why don't we try to, because we're forecasting them. We're forecasting and it's not going to.
But it could work, I mean, that's the thing, it sounds like you guys are just saying no, and the town and the people's willing to continue to pay or whatever.
Then they can do that through a contract. I mean, there's another avenue to do it. More money.
All about money with you.
Money.
You're gonna want more money sooner or later. That's the whole thing, right?
It comes down to the.
It comes down to the money. You're gonna want more money. It may not be this year, next year, you're gonna want more money.
Spike and control.
No, it's gonna be based on the tax rate.
I have a gentleman over here who's been raising their hand for the last 10 minutes.
Go right ahead.
Touch on him. Yes, sir.
I understood as run as a business, how do you put that, people that online as a business, and as far as, Tipton and all these other counties coming in here. My parents was dying, my dad was dying in Oldville. They sent pictures up to him. When my mother died, they sent Whitfield. Neither one of these guys knew where they was going. I had to park my car in the middle of the road so they could find us. So how do you think Tipton's gonna come in here and find these streets? Sheridan's a long way from here. I just came from Sheridan a few minutes ago. So how do you put people's lives and safety above business, as you call
Well,
it?
nobody said Tipton was coming in.
You just got to
Well, I got you, there's other options.
I know you did, but how do you put people's lives in jeopardy?
So your question is, you believe that we're gonna incorporate Tipton to be part of the territory?
I didn't say I understood it, of course, you're running it as a business. I always thought business was, anyone else besides fire department, police department, next. So you're putting people's lives above jeopardy because it's run as a business.
You said
That's why was it, and, one of the newscasts I read off in the,
money is.
Are you saying the territory or are you saying the township?
What Chris
people
said.
right here in Arcadia, when you check, going by Shipton's apartment down and so forth.
Arcadia's not shutting down the department, you have a misunderstanding of what's going on.
Well, how about the medics then?
We're gonna be there.
There, paramedics will be there and fire truck will be there.
I hope so, but my wife is that medic.
Sure, I understand. Totally understand. Yes, ma'am.
Why, if you were gonna make this type of a decision and it affected the town of Arcadia and the town of Atlanta, why did the board not contact these towns and let them know, heads up, what was going to happen at that meeting?
There was discussion previous.
Previously, but were those contacted?
No. I'd like to comment on that because I'm on this fire territory board, and like Marie said, I represent the town of Atlanta. This is a big surprise to us. We had the fire territory meeting in January. Chris Miller herself, representing the township that is withdrawn, sat here and asked us about what we had for plans for long-term goals, where we wanted to be at. We needed to start deciding this. And she was leading us to believe that this territory was going to stay in existence. In the December meeting, Maurice point blank asked Chris Miller. He also asked Jeff Roberts at the president's meeting, and they said that there was no discussion about pulling out of fire territory at the present time that they were aware of. And all this was going on, and this financial situation that they're using as an excuse, I'd like to know why, because I got Chris Miller's report off the Gateway. It's open, anybody can go to the Gateway government site and pull up the records. It's the annual reports. You can go put it back to 2011 when the territory was established. I sit here and look at the money that's in there, and there is no financial crisis at all, and we were not discussed this. You know, I would thought if we were in this, that the township board would have came to the fire territory board and discussed this and let us know their concerns. And my other part of this is, their financial concerns, the only thing that any entity that's involved in this territory has a concern about would be the provider unit, because the provider unit is responsible for any over expenditures of the territory if we exceed the budget. Well, they're paying the budget, they're paying the bill, so they got an eye on this on a daily basis. So if it was to go over, they'd have to take it out of their budget, the township budget, to make up whatever the overage is. Now, if that was one of their concerns, whenever this issue came up and we heard all about, you know, we're gonna have a shortfall, we gotta start putting money in there that we don't have, and I was asked to review the budget, and I did, and there was no issues with it. We offered to take over the provider unit if that was a concern. So other than that, each town has a representative sitting here on this board that votes for any expenditures.
That's another question. In December, if I'm not, I read the minutes today, that you approved assistant chief, was it?
Replacing
Yeah,
the one
replacing.
that resigned.
And so if you have money problems, as you say we do, why did you agree to approve that?
We have the funding now.
Now, you keep telling all of us that you have funding and that you're forecasting down the road. If you put a pie together and you've got the township, the unincorporated, the corporated, the town of Atlanta and town of Arcadia, you pull those two out, you're not gonna have that same pie. You're gonna be less in that pie. So you're hurting yourself as much as you're hurting the towns. And you're saying, oh, but if they sign a contract with us and give us some more money, then we'll stay with you. And then what are you going to do in 2 years? Come and say, oh, well, we're low again on funds, but if you give us more money, we'll stay with you. But you come to a meeting that you knew what it was about.
Yeah.
And you knew that all these people had
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
But
They
you didn't
should
bring
have
any
been prepared.
numbers. You didn't bring any numbers to back what you're saying. You knew that we were going to ask these questions.
Thank you very much for your time, I appreciate that. I'm sorry, over here, I think you wanted to say something earlier.
Well, I just feel like, and half of my question's already been answered. You realize that Atlanta and Arcadia is not in a position to meet the financial needs and do all this on our own, okay? And you're very much aware of that. And I know we've had some issues over co-ed money in the past. And I personally feel, and I don't know if this is a question, but I just want to tell you my personal feeling. I feel like that you, your entity, is using this as an excuse to put a stranglehold on Atlanta and Arcadia. And I say stranglehold because really our options is very, very limited. And even if we do find another provider, it's not going to be the same as it is right now. And you say this is all about money. I realize it takes money to run a business. Everybody here knows that. We all have bills at home. You don't pay your bills, you don't, you know. But we're talking about people's lives here as well. We're talking about people who could very well die from a heart attack because somebody can't get there on time because the money wasn't available.
We fully expect to respond to.
And I just wondered, looking at it from my point of view, you put a stranglehold on us. It's either do it our way or do without.
Yes, sir.
It brings it back to the very first meeting of our question of the meeting. There was a notification about this meeting. That's why everybody's here tonight. Why was there not a notification for a meeting where you guys made a decision to pull out of the territory? Because I guarantee almost at least half of the people in this room, we're paying 0.19 whatever. I would gladly pay 0.2 to keep you part of the territory, to keep everything, because you've already said that we can last till December. It's in the budget. Ms. Cook has already said that there's been money rolling over. So why wasn't there any notification to the public stating, we are thinking about doing this. We can last till the end of the year. Why weren't we notified that we were all blindsided by it?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
That's not answering my question. I'm sorry, but that's not answering my question. Why was there no notification?
There was notification of the meeting, it was a township board decision.
At 3 o'clock.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If there was notification about a meeting that pertained to this, I guarantee all these people would have been there.
Chris, is there any possibility that besides the calendar saying that there is a meeting, that there could be an agenda that's posted ahead of time? I mean, I read the January minutes, and it said we opened, we voted on officers, and we closed. That's all it said.
Yeah, pretty much that's all that meeting was.
But if you had in there that we're going to discuss the fire territory and the funding thereof, maybe people would show up.
I'd be more than happy to post that on our website. I can absolutely do that.
A little late now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been done.
I still heard questions.
Okay, I have a question for you. And I agree with this person up front that said something about when you're dealing with patients' lives or people's lives. Have you researched the number of runs that Jksn Fire Territory has done? And hypothetically, if you went to Cicero, how many runs they have done and the response time? Because the response time is going to be expanded, obviously, if you hypothetically went with Cicero, or if you went with Westfield, or if you went with Sheridan. And You know, I have a concern about that for everybody in this room, including my parents, getting what they need to get. And I think everybody, including everyone up here, should be concerned as well. So have you researched that at all? And how much money Cicero's making compared to Jackson Fire Territory? Has that been researched? And how much more they might make?
Hey, are you talking about the townships or the towns?
I'm talking about the township covering, like, out here, this fire department covering Atlanta, or, you know, all of them combined together, and Cicero, if you were to go to Cicero's fire department. That is what I'm talking about. The number of friends Cicero makes compared to here in the fire territory, and the response time.
Cicero didn't want to join the territory.
Well, hypothetically, if they did, that's what I'm just saying.
They won't.
Well, who's gonna do-
We tried for years.
Okay, but if
So
you
say
go
we
with
contract
Cicero
them out.
now, you still have the number of runs they make and the number of runs that Jackson Township makes. Have
Well,
you looked at that?
Those options are examples of what we could do.
No, I know, I just want to
Doesn't mean that the
know.
towns are gonna elect to do that.
Well, I understand that, but if you're gonna look
When
at
we make a
options.
decision about getting the fire department that can best respond to the town, it's not gonna be somebody living in Chicago. Okay, it's gonna be a local. So, we'd have to pick the nearest fire department that would respond to our needs as soon as possible.
Well, why would
You can
that
go
be?
back- You can go back dispatch in the sheriff's department, and they go to the fire council, they'll give you all the response times of all the fire departments in the county. And you go to our fire chief in the township and ask the chief the response time. But I can tell you, it makes more sense from the town side that we would like to have somebody nearby.
No, I understand that. You're not telling me the answer here. Why wouldn't you research that? I mean, if that's an option, why won't you research that?
Did you research it at all? Yes or no?
Research what?
The response time.
Response times, how many runs they went on?
Absolutely, you have to. I'm not gonna pick somebody that takes 20 minutes to get to a fire site.
That's not
You
what
have to
she's
find
asking.
Somebody that gets there within a reasonable amount of time.
She's asking you before, did you research that? Not now, when a call is made.
Oh, before
Right.
it started?
Correct.
By years, sorry.
Yeah, before it all started, did you research that and put that into the equation?
Absolutely.
She's not asking when someone calls and say, my dad's having a heart attack. Well, let me see, where you live, or who's closer, Cicero or Westwood?
No.
You know, they're not asking that question.
First of all, we get dispatched by the dispatch center in Noblesville. And they have a protocol that all the chiefs and all the fire departments have set up to see who responds first and who responds second. They control the protocol, they control the dispatch. But before that, yes, there was a lot of effort to go in there and figure out which fire department would be the best for our needs. He hasn't answered the question, so go ahead.
Now, so they're gonna shut down July 1st, correct?
Where?
Well, they're quitting our service, correct?
Nothing, well, the relationship, territory, township will dissolve effective July 1st.
Okay, in other words, if we need service, we gotta go somewhere else to get it, correct? Then why are they staying in this town?
Exactly.
Why are they staying here? Who wants them? If they're not gonna service, get them out. I don't care about that. I want them out if they're not gonna service.
So if a fire's happening in town, this fire station is not gonna go service it, but if it's out of town, they're gonna go service it.
Get them out.
Is that correct?
Is
that correct? Yes or no?
No, please understand. There's a moral issue involved here too as well.
A moral? Yeah, there's a moral issue with everybody making these votes that didn't
Okay, now,
involve us.
if we can't slow down and keep the noise down, I'm not gonna be able to answer any questions. Please. Low temperament, please. And my question was, even if we don't have a contract with anybody, and there's a fire that happens in this town that there's no contract, we're not Kentucky. You know what happened in Kentucky, right? If you didn't pay the fees, just sit outside the door and watch your house burn down. We're not gonna do that. I mean, the fire department will be there to put out the fire.
That one?
It's a matter of cost, who's gonna pay for that? not the service.
Which,
You don't understand that?
It doesn't make any sense.
which
I mean,
fire
the-
department is gonna
What
respond?
makes sense to you?
We have a fire department in town that should service everybody. I mean, seriously, a phone call comes in, no, you live in town, sorry. Same way with ambulatory service, is that correct too, if you're out of
That
town?
question should be directed to the township, not the town of Arcadia or Atlanta. The township.
Under the way that we're set up right now, we can run the fire services, the EMS services exactly with the budget and let it go to December the 31st, if that's okay with the town, we'll just leave it the way it is. And then we'll sit down together and decide how to start January 1. I mean, that's.
What happens
again,
on
that's the way
January
we're
1?
gonna do it.
What are the name of the three people that were on the board that made this decision?
I'll let the township
Jeff
trustees.
Roberts, Glenn Schwartz, and Jerry Cook. And I did not vote. The trustee does not have a vote. Although I agree with the decision.
Yes, ma'am.
Co-op money is so unpredictable. So you say you're basing your new budget off of co-op money.
Not strictly off of co-op, but we're hoping.
Well,
to
you
capture
keep bringing
that.
up co-op money.
Yeah, I'm hoping to capture that co-op, yes.
Yeah. So it's unpredictable year by year.
Agreed.
So when the co-op money goes down significantly,
Exactly.
how are you going to employ your firemen, your
Because we-
paramedics?
Because we do have a tax rate that can do that. I mean, our tax rate will handle that.
Why isn't that taking care of
But
it now?
that's gonna cut your budget, because
Well,
you're
it's gonna
saying
take
you're
care of it,
gonna.
Jane, it's gonna take care of it now.
I'm sorry, to repeat the question.
So if you have to increase the rate to pay for the additional firefighters and EMS, are you going to increase the unincorporated area rate?
No.
It won't
It can increase. It's there, max levy.
So we won't have the fire territory rate, but
The rate
what
of-
about the other rate?
The rate of .196 stays. That's where we are.
Actually, it's down this year.
Is it down? Well, then, yeah.
See, it's unpredictable, you don't know what
It's unpredictable, yeah.
It's unpredictable, so how can you base your budget
And I
off
understand,
of COVID?
and it's not totally based off of COLA, but we see that as additional revenue. It's the only thing we have. I mean, we have to get as much as we can to make it go, make it work.
This gentleman.
Yeah, I got a couple questions real quick. Okay, I live out of town. So, my question is, the fire department you say is still gonna be there. Is it gonna be ran by volunteer fire department people, or is it gonna be someone on the payroll? If it goes to a volunteer fire department, all the lives, out of the question, my insurance rate on my home is gonna raise $100 a month.
Yes.
Everybody in town is gonna pay 25, 50 or more bucks a month on your insurance. All the EMS runs, all the fire runs aside. Our insurance is gonna go out the roof.
Skyrocket.
Has anyone even thought about that?
We're actually going.
So is it gonna be a volunteer fire department? Is it gonna be a paid fire department?
There's still gonna be full-time people there.
A full-time paid person there. So you're saying that my insurance is not gonna go up because I have a full-time fire department down the road?
But everybody in town is gonna go up.
But everybody in town is gonna go up
Even if
because,
they got a fire hydrant.
Yeah. I have a fire.
I don't understand, that's what, make me understand it.
Yeah.
Give me a hose, I'll put out my neighbor's fire.
I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, but when I come to work, I do bring my tools.
Right now, we have we have 2 people a day that are full-time. So that's a total of 6 full-time people. And then we run a part-time medic program. We used to have a part-time EMT program that we hope to bring back. But so our goal is to have 3 people on a day. 2 are full-time, 1 is part-time, because these guys work 24 hours. And then there is a volunteer department that's attached as well, so there are volunteers from time to time.
There's a gentleman back, all the way to the back there that's had his hand up there.
This is gonna be a real simple, real quick question. How many of the people that were in this decision-making process had their house burned to the ground when they were a child? Well, you told me earlier that the response times may be slowed down because we have to have Sheridan come in here. I was a child, my house burnt to the ground. That 5 minutes is everything in the entire world.